Um, myself, Senator Berry and Senator Jackson are fairly new to the budget process. So what I've been kind of doing is just letting you guys make some introductions, give us a 30,000 foot overview of your waterway district, and then we can get into your FY 26 budget request, if that works.
My name is Randy Pierce. I'm actually the counsel. I retired from up at Ole Miss and went back into the private sector. And so I'm the board attorney. Here is George D. Cook, who's the comptroller. He will be presenting the numbers today. And Lisa Clark's with Human Resources. Nick Bain is helping us this session as well, and we appreciate him being here, Mr. Chairman. But George will make our presentation and answer any questions you have. But as you all know, the Pat Harrison Waterway District, we have 9 parks. Primarily in South Mississippi, in the Pasco River Basin. We go all the way up to Kemper County, of course, all the way down toward the coast. We got Stone County, which has Flint Creek in it. And our revenue comes from two pots. The counties that are members pay a portion up to a 7/8 meal for property taxes, as well as we get. So this year, budget that has already submitted.
Okay, so back in August, we submitted the budgets, made a few corrections that were requested of us. But basically, we're asking for the same level funding that we had for the current fiscal year 25, just above $8 million. So can work within that frame of money. And about the only thing that we'd really ask would be that any pins that had been cut would be restored to us. Over the last several years, we had quite a few part-time pins, and we worked with the Legislative Budget Office at getting rid of those part-time pins. So we've gotten rid of quite a few pins that we weren't using. And we still have vacant pens, and based on our money situation, we're going to try to fill those at some point, but we want to make sure that we don't spend too much of our cash reserves.
So it looks like LBR knocked you down by 13 pins from 55 down to 42.
Right.
How many employees do you have now? Full-time employees?
30.
And then we have quite a few contract workers.
Okay, that's captured up under your contractual obligations.
That's correct.
The 31 to 55, those 20 some odd, 24 employees that you're missing, what type of, what are they?
Mostly park employees, general service pins. That is.
Yes, one is our executive director, which they are in the process of hiring.
Filling that.
They're in the interview stage right now. But the rest of them are pretty much park employees.
When's the last time y'all had 55 employees, or y'all were pretty close to that?
I'd say it's probably been 8 to 10 years since we've had that many.
Okay, so that's probably what Elbow is looking at.
That's correct.
All right.
We do, want to make sure that we have enough money to continue operations in the future. We had, within the last 11 years, we've had 5 counties withdraw, one of which we've added back within the last few months. So those counties, when they withdrew, was about $1.5 million in ad valorem taxes that we no longer have to put towards funding the agency. So that's quite a hit. Probably 20% of our revenues, 25% of our revenues over that 11-year period.
Okay. Do the members of the committee have any questions? Okay. On the ones that on the counties that withdrew, were those? Did you have any? I guess you didn't have any parks located inside those counties.
We did. We had in Lamar County, we had one park. That park is now leased out to a private individual. But about 4 months ago, 6 months ago, we had to pay over $500,000 to repair a dam that DEQ was telling us that, needed to be brought up to date. So although we're not getting any money from Lamar County, we had to spend $500,000 to bring that dam up to standards.
Was that just a continuing obligation from when they were part of the
It's,
district?
it's going to be a perpetual obligation.
One thing that, and I've been relatively new, when I retired and became their board attorney, Mr. Chairman, when you look at Pat Harrison, when you look at the funding for some of these lakes, a lot of it came from the federal government. You have these perpetual maintenance. And Lamar County first withdrew legislature before 2000 in the 90s had passed a law to allow counties to withdraw. Originally, there were 15 member counties, and it was like Hotel California. There was no exit. And so when the legislature changed that, then it allowed counties to withdraw. And so Lamar County withdrew, and then they had litigation as to ascertain the contractual obligations of the withdrawal date. It made its way to the Supreme Court. I was over there, and 5-4 vote. I was on the side. Lamar County won that accounting competition, which significantly impacted in a negative way Pat Harrison. Had no idea I'd be sitting here as their board attorney one day. There's two big challenges with the district. Number one is these are state parks. The state of Mississippi owns this. And so they're going to be there whether Pat Harrison survives or not. I guess the State Department of Wildlife will take it over. But Pat Harrison does a really good job of focused management of these parks. Got a great core set of employees. And so long term, obviously, you have to start bleeding, because when you look at the revenue decrease from the counties, it hasn't been made up for with park revenue. And so we've had decreases.
Mhm.
In addition, Senator Tate, I'm sure, would like to speak to this at some point, but Clark County, our Chusa, that dam failed. And it is an empty mess over there right now. I drove around that lake the other day, and it's just grass growing up. We've got to get that dam back together. We got the Corps of Engineers gave a $12 million below end. We don't have it. Y'all appropriated $2 million last year. We are in the process of getting an engineer. We're even looking at an earthen dam. We talked to DEQ, Mississippi DEQ, about doing an assessment to help us find a cheaper way to get water back in that lake. And because it's a wonderful park that is just sitting there empty. So that, and the fact that we got to make sure we shore up our finances moving forward. Perry County had exited, but we got them back in. So we lost 5, we got 1 back. And we've added 1. We've added Kemper. Kemper wasn't an original member county. And so we have them back. So we're in a good spot now, the counties we have now. The 2 largest counties we have now, Lauderdale and Jones. Those are those counties. So we believe we've stopped the bleeding when it comes to county withdrawals. We hope we have. Now it's a matter of getting our parks back in a place, because they generate tremendous amount of revenue and tourism dollars for our state.
Understood. Appreciate it. Yes, sir, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Randy, on that point of like our Chusa, for example, if it drains out because the dam burst, would you not just leave it there? Or is it because Clark County pays in, you've got an obligation or commitment to build it back up?
Well, in that particular part.
And let me ask a second part, because you may want to answer this as part of that. In Lamar County, seems like if their dam was about to burst, you might just do a slow drain of that lake if they're not going to contribute, and just let it go. Or do you have some obligation to the feds or someone else that would require you to maintain those?
We have an obligation to maintain those in perpetuity. So.
Even if the county's not contributing to that, you still have an obligation to maintain that.
I believe that was what was argued in the lawsuit.
Yeah.
Supreme Court, and I believe that's in some of the documentation we have with the
federal funds that you received. Yeah. Okay.
Big difference between the calculation. Lamar County paid, Jim Corber was the expert for the district, and he quantified what those perpetual obligations would be in present day dollars. And the trial court, when they looked at it, said, no, we're going to take Lamar County's position that, well, we know you're outstanding right now. What's accounts payable? What's short-term loan pay? Those types of things. And it went from several $1 million amount that you had to pay to exit to 300-something thousand or $500,000. And it was a significant hit. And then the dominoes started falling. Jackson County pulled out. That was significant. We tried to get them back, but we don't think they're coming back. But there are, and I haven't looked into this, previous board attorney was there many years. He exited with me. He said, look, the one thing that's true is most of these parks have perpetual obligations to the federal government. And that if this district, if everybody withdraws one day, then the state's going to come in and take it over. And so because we've done it, the district's done it for so long, it just makes good economic sense to make sure that we stay strong as the district stays strong to maintain these obligations in the most cost-efficient way we can. But back to Quitman and Clark County, they are a member county, but there's communities built up around it, and they're sitting there with an empty lake behind them. And so there is, and plus we believe that our commitment is to build it. And we're trying to get an alternate to the $12 to $17 million projection that the Corps model, obviously, that includes, for example, $2.5 million to replenish the fish. Well, we're going to back that out because we can maybe work with our sister agency, the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, to maybe work with them to do that at some point. But we're trying to get ahead of it to make sure we shore it up, and we believe we have, for a stronger future and a more balanced future.
Understood.
That park or that lake is the only one that has both the park side, recreation side, and residential development on half of it. So that's one of the Clark County's interest in getting that back because of the local residential.
The last thing I'll mention to the committee was there some language was in the appropriation bill that prohibited funds for repair of a horse trail. We talked to the House side about taking that language out. The district's got I think a $500,000 grant from MDOT down at Flint Creek to do some work on a horse. I don't know anything about horse trails, but there's some money there that we can't spend because that language was in the appropriation bill. And so we'd asked the House to consider removing that language. They didn't know where the language originated from. I didn't know, but we'd request that language come out of that appropriation.
Okay, so that's the 700,000 for the Flint Creek horse trail repairs. That would
Yes.
be what you want to have the restriction.
Removed, yes, sir. So we can access that grant. I believe it's a $500,000 grant.
500,000 with a 20% match for us.
I reached out to Chairman Bounds, and back in the fall, and he connected me, I think, with Ronnie Frith, and they came to the conclusion that the way the bill was written, we could not do anything even through with a grant. So that language was a problem for us.
So is that 700,000 still, you guys still have that?
It's
Just
just
haven't
a
drawn it.
grant. All we have to do is come up, well, we'd have to make the $500,000, and then we'd get 400,000 back.
Gotcha.
20%
Okay,
grant, 20% match.
understood. So that just restricted language has to come out.
Yes.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on that. I'll get with the chairman and see what the background on that is before we commit to that one way or the other. But yeah, we'll work with you on that best we can. All right. Any other questions from the committee?
There was also a line item in there for $480,000 for dam repairs. Are y'all requesting that?
We'd like for that to stay in there because we do have ongoing discussions with DEQ about 2 or 3 additional dams that they feel like we may need to bring up to standards. So we would like for that stay in there so we can have the authority to do that work if we need to.
Understood. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, all ready? All right, so this is Senate Appropriations Subcommittee 7, meeting with the with Office of State Aid Road Construction. Mr. Lee, I think you know just about everybody on the committee here. Way we've been handling these is just kind of give us a 30,000-foot overview of Office of State Aid Road Construction, and then we'll get into your budget, if that works.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today to share what we do. We're a unique agency. Sometimes compared to MDOT, we do some things similar, but then we're totally the opposite. MDOT's got their toys they play with, their infrastructure. They own bridges and roads and snow plows now and all kinds of stuff. We don't, we play with the county's toys. We play with their roads and bridges and stuff like that. I own a dozen or so vehicles. I've got some computers and desks. My biggest asset is my employees. And that's why I'm passionate about getting them funded to the fullest extent that I can. Each and every year. And this is my deputy, Kristen Eaton. If none of you have met her before, she's my finance lady. Very smart, smarter than me. She tells me what not to say when it comes to money. So if she starts frowning or whatever, let me know so I can before I get kicked. So anyway, again, thank y'all for the opportunity to come before you today and present what we do. We are in code under 65-9 and 65-37 typically, which is the state aid program, and the local system bridge program, which bridges have risen to prominence in the last 7 or 8 years due to the condition of the bridges at the local level. State aid is a small agency. I don't work for Brad White. I'm not part of MDOT unless I need to be. We're kind of an agency within an agency. Can you hear me okay with that? Okay. So we utilize a lot of the things they have that they're able to provide to us, through us. We're actually housed in one of their facilities and everything. It's out there by the stadium and everything we discussed the other day. But other than that, and I share one of their assistant AGs from Lynn Fitch's office and everything. But other than that, we're totally independent. We have to do a budget each year, submit that just like any other small state agency. Our agency is one of the 10 or 12 cabinet agencies of the governor. I'm appointed by the governor for a 4-year term or whatever. I got 54 pins. Every one of us is will and pleasure. I mean, we could be sent to the house any day for whatever. I'm here not really seeking funding because our funds collect kind of like a car wash or a vending machine. I mean, they come in each and every month and get deposited in the state treasury from the fuel tax, $4 million a month, use tax, 5% total that goes to the 2 bridge funds at 2.5% each. So for any given year, we're guaranteed funding of $91 million per year. I mean, that comes in regardless. Even if we didn't want to take it, we got to take it. So what we're here today for, as we are always, is for spending authority, budget authority. We're going to get the money. It's that, we're the stewards of the money that goes to the counties for their state aid program, their bridge programs and everything like that. So that's what we're looking for. And there are lots of things that people don't think about that impact that. We recently did a paving job or approved a paving job for Winston County. They had like $1.8 million in state aid money that they put up for it. They had to send us a check for $4 million to be able to move that project forward. that spending authority goes into our account so we can pay the bills to the contractor. But that goes against our budget authority when we're spending somebody else's money, which I don't think y'all take that into account when in there. We do have a figure in there for our, in our budget for that, but we never know when, you know, things like that are gonna come into play. So our budget request, in essence, is a reappropriation of monies from former years, in addition to what we're gonna be seeing in the coming year, plus some of money that may come from, you know, other sources that we're not aware of. Like the ARPA money that came in, we had a few projects that were funded with, they sent in a county contribution for ARPA money that's appropriated by the legislature, you know, the special request. As they come in at the end of the session, that can come to us. Just any kind of different source, you know, from an outside agency or whatever, from, NRCS that goes to a county for an erosion control around a bridge or something. So we're unaware of a lot of things in the past, and we still are to a certain extent. We're reactive in things. We're trying to be more proactive and keeping up with what's going on at the county so we can work with them. Because one of the things I've discovered over the course of all of this is there's a provision in Mississippi Code already that said it is the intent of this provision, whether it's in state aid or LSBP, to utilize to the fullest practical extent the balance of state aid funds on hand at all times. So untie my hands, please, and let us spend the money we have, because it's not doing anybody any good in the bank. I mean, it's better when it's spent on the road before inflation gets a hold of it. I was preaching to a bunch of supervisors a couple of years ago and said, don't you wish you'd spent this paving money 3 years ago? You could buy twice as many miles as what you're able to purchase now with, you know, with the cost of asphalt going up, concrete, everything else. So it's not in anybody's benefit to let it just lay there on a project. We were seeing in the past, you know, there were some counties that were using it for, I'd say, for political gain. They wouldn't let projects until they get to the end of the board term. And we work with the board term, just like y'all's term as a senator, 4-year increments, which is not exactly the same as the, you know, the fiscal year, which we have to budget for. But they would, you know, program a project and didn't want to put it on a contract until they could get there to the end of the board term so they could get votes with it. I've actually had some not let a project because they thought they were going to make somebody mad so they wouldn't get reelected. And so we're trying to put some sense into that, put some, you know, business intuition into it and say, look, we're trying to improve the roads at the county level, not trying to get y'all reelected or whatever. And of course, we have to be, you know, careful in what we say. But I know former Senator Branning, that used to be one of her biggest irks. I mean, she said they're not supposed to be doing that. So, but we, you know, we still see it and everything. And there's certain things we can and can't do. I know it's in code that they can't let projects, or we can't let projects in that last 6 months of board term. They can't buy certain purchases and things like that. And of course, some of the legislation that's come about, particularly dealing with bridges, whether it was ERBR or some other programs, or I think even LSBP, I think in SABP now, they can let bridge projects pull the plug and let those suckers run to, you know, the full extent. They don't have to have any restrictions on them as far as pushing those projects out there. Because I've still got over 2,000 bridges right now that are in poor condition that need to be replaced, whatever. And it's, you know, it's $1.5 billion problem to have. And, you know, there's relief in sight, but we haven't figured out yet where it starts or stops. We do know it's not a train, but it's, you know, it's a light at the end of the tunnel. We just haven't figured out how far it is.
Is the issue that the counties are waiting till they bring you up to the request help with the project or with the bridge?
No, we've gotten real proactive with them and pointing out, here's what you need to focus on. Our website is very intuitive. They can look on there and they can see which ones, and then if they need to use it politically to divide it up, because I mean, obviously there's 82 counties, but there's 5 supervisors in every county, and they're looking at what funds they get divided by 5. And I'm usually, a lot of times I'm following Brad White. with MDOT, and y'all give him an extra $1 million. He's got to divide it maybe by 3 for the 3 commissions. Every dollar I get, I have to divide it by 82, just as a minimum. So $1 million don't go as far as they used to. We will, but, and then when you divide it by 82, it's even, slimmer.
Understood.
So, we'd love to see additional funding for the state aid road program, because that funding that's out there now for it was put in place in 1994 and has not changed in amount since that time. And that was when the LSBP program was created. So.
Understood. Do any of the members of the committee have any questions for Mr. Lee? No? Okay. So right now, your total head count, you have 54 pins available.
54 pins. I've got, I'm down 10%. I'm got 6 vacancies. We were like, I think at 15 last year, and we hired 3 or 4 people this last year. So I'm down a couple of engineers. We're typically engineers, accountants, and a bunch of program specialists to come in, and pay the contractors, run the accounting programs and everything, and keep the jobs rolling so that,
Where are the 6 that you're missing now? Where are those engineers?
2 are engineers. I think there may be 1 accountant position that's still available. The others are basically their program specialists. They're support people for, the what we call pre-construction, looking at projects that the county engineers would send to us to further, that would result in a construction project at the county level. We do everything we do through the county engineers. We have the counties have contracts with them. Those it's in statute what they've got to do. And so those are in many cases, most cases, long-term relationships. And they'll, send stuff into us, and we take it, process it, and we're getting better and better and trying to get new computer equipment or better resources to be able to push this stuff faster through the system, because it doesn't help anybody to delay it anything. So we've got a pretty quick turnaround time on projects getting them started, and then it's up to, we throw it back to the county, and then they've
It's up
got
to
to
the
get
county to
back.
actually
So,
perform.
yeah, back and forth with that. So
You got for your FY 26 request, you're like 5.2 million in salaries. LBO is about 4.99 million. It's not a terrible delta. But what is the basis for the additional salary request? Are you looking for another round of pay raises?
I'm looking to get my engineers beefed up some more. I mean, because we're always, in pretty much any position we hire into now with a vacancy, we got to start them out at least at 10% above what the minimum is. Again, a lot of times we're seen as the little mini MDOT. My district engineers, which I've got 8, are we're below what MDOT pays, comparably pays their people at that same level, even though they got completely different functions. My engineers are typically out in the field looking at projects, going to lettings and working with contractors and working with the county engineers to keep projects flowing through our office.
So that's what it is. You're looking for pay raises.
I'm looking for an overall, without having to say this individual or this classification needs this kind of raise, because that's what we used to do years ago. Now I'm looking for something general, because I'm not looking at raising everybody's salary in the office 10%. I'm looking at just giving me a pot of availability for funding that I can apply it where I need to.
All right. Good deal. Any questions from the committee? We're good? All right, Mr. Lee, thank you for your time.
Okay, again,
Get into
glad to be here, answer any questions. The roughly 10,500 bridges of the counties that we have to oversee, and that's one of our big functions right now, is looking at the county bridge inventory and keeping that rolling. So we're constantly making some changes internally to make that an easier process, because that's a $30 million per year expenditure that we have to push out for bridge inspection. So.
So in your appropriation bill on your handout, and me and you discussed it before, there's a section 4, it says an amount not to exceed $40 million for LSBP program. So what changes are you wanting to make to that section 4?
Well, we're actually wondering whether that actually even needs to be in there. Probably it was put in there when LSBP was created, when it was funded through the bond program or either funding through the general fund and had some triggers in it so that if this level was reached, it would be funded or whatever. Now that we're getting automatically funding through the use tax with the guaranteed minimum each and every month, it doesn't matter any. I mean, because one year actually, we were given spending authority, but we weren't given any money. So it didn't really matter. Now it really doesn't matter at all because that money is automatically coming into that program, so we don't need it. Now, one thing I point out too is the difference in what we had last year, and the LBR was 10 million less than what we had, requested. I'm actually having to hold some projects in under the newly created state aid bridge program, even though we're about to hit our 2-year milestone on, because I don't have adequate cash. I don't have adequate spending authority that doesn't count against my other spending authority, where I can, with good conscience, push those projects forward and knowing that they may, get spent out to get hit in our spending authority in the next 6 months or whatever. I mean, if you remember last year, I say overspent. We paid out $13 million, I think, in our LSBP system under that first half of the fiscal year, which typically we're looking at 10 million the first half, 10 million the second. So we had to come back and ask for additional funding for that program. I hate to say thankfully we didn't overshoot it the second half, just because it was the end of the board term, some other things. So things slow down. Things are real slow with the first year of a board term, and we just started the second year of a board term, and they'll ramp up and then they'll stay, high level, high demand on our finances through the board term, and particularly now that there's no restriction on spending in that last 6 months and everything. So it's just a constant push of projects through, particularly when they're bridge related. So we
40 million not to exceed.
right.
So I
Yeah.
guess in
See
essence,
that as
you're,
a cap.
It's just spending authority. We've got the funds to do that. It's just that we're restricted in that, and I'll throw back to that statement in statute that says is to spend all the money in the state aid account to the largest extent possible. So if we don't have a cap on it or something that's well beyond what we know we would need, that's one thing. But to restrict it so we have to watch what we're doing. So this time next year, I may have a bridge in Lowndes County that I'll look it up when I get back to the office. But that's the kind of, I think it's one in Simpson County that I was having to look at. Yeah, so, or maybe been one in Harrison County too, I don't know. They've got their share of them, I'll know that.
Probably not.
So anyway, but those are the things we shouldn't have to be looking at. We ought to be able to do our jobs. I mean, that's one of the things that the last cabinet meeting I went with in the governor's office. He made it a point. He said, be proactive. We don't want to be reactive. He said, y'all are the best of the best. That's why you're where you are. He said, let's get out there and just rip and roar and go. He said, because I'm planning on having a $100 million economic development project on December 31st of 2027, the day I leave office. And that's what we want to do. We want to keep pushing it to the limit. And if we don't have any restraints on, within reason, I mean, obviously you don't want to, give me a $400 million spending authority, whatever, but I reasonably think, and I've got to convince my accountants how to get there, is probably 3 times what my revenue is. It's probably a more reasonable spending authority. And we never know what the legislature is going to give us too, or come up with and everything. So we get all kinds of surprises, we just have to adapt to it.
Well, I'll as we go through the session, I'll get some background on that section 4 and how that came to be.
And again, we're glad to help you. Thank you for the opportunity to, to come before you. And any questions that you may have either after today or whatever, just feel free to reach out to me, and we'll give you any information we can. So,
Thank you, Harry.
yes, sir. Thank you.
Don't miss it all.
Yeah,
Missed it all.
I need my cut at the youth tax. Don't forget me. I wasn't gonna miss that one.
Yes, sir, boss.
Okay, thank y'all. I'm still waiting on Mark.
So that's not something that we.
Yeah.
We don't think of that. For anything else, this one.
They go giving a lot on this, and I talked to Mayor and Ron.
Yes, ma'am.
They're out there. Sources are more there.
I checked it.
So
He told me they didn't have any more.
I'll look at it.
basically, we're trying to be a true lump sum, you know, for
Yeah.
example.
How many LSP projects?
That's it.
All right, guys, this is Senate Appropriations Subcommittee number 7. This is our last hearing of the day. We're going to hear from Mr. Brad White with MDOT. Mr. White, we've been just get a 30,000-foot view of the agency and kind of what your kind of immediate projects or needs are. And then any questions from the committee, then we'll get into the budget and go from there.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to come over and to talk with y'all about transportation and what we have going on. I think this is my 4th session with MDOT, and I really appreciate the support we've always been able to receive and count on from the legislature. When we first started meeting with y'all, we talked about some of the big needs that we had, which was primarily money for staff and money for projects. I'm happy to report back to you that I think SEC Squared has been a raging success. We've been able to stop the bleeding of employees. We're beginning the slow climb back of recruiting engineers and maintenance staff and other professionals back into the department to get us back to a level where we can adequately carry out our mission around the state and with the counties. Y'all will remember that we had suffered such decline in our team that where we used to have maintenance forces in all 82 counties, that force had shrunk to where one team was having to deal with a region rather than the county. With regard to our engineering staff, we had lost so many engineers to the point that we had become completely dependent on consulting firms to do a lot of the pre-construction work and other work that goes into us carrying out our projects and stuff around the state. I believe we've been able to appropriately and adequately address the salary needs, thanks to SEC Squared, and the personnel board's been great to work with us on all of that to where we've stopped the bleeding of employees and we're starting to build back. And I don't think that will change, and hope we can count on continued support in the area of our salaries like that. With regard to money for projects, as y'all know, we implement a federal program that's authorized by Congress every 5 years. The legislature has been kind enough to step up during this reauthorization of federal highway under the IIJA legislation, and you have provided us with $40 million a year that would be the additional state funds necessary to ensure that we can draw down the extra federal dollars that were made available to Mississippi. And you've been very helpful to us in working with the capacity program and identifying one-time money that has allowed us to put big projects to construction that otherwise we would not been able to. I think y'all have given us in the neighborhood of close to $1 billion over the last 3 sessions that has been put directly on construction projects like Highway 15 in Tippah County, Highway 7 in Lafayette County, I-55 in DeSoto areas in Neshoba County, Warren County, the Gulf Coast, and other areas around that has allowed us to have a record year last year in the amount of awards. It was we awarded over $1.2 billion in both paving and capacity projects, and that's the most the department's ever been able to put out under contract, and that's primarily due to the support we've received from the state legislature and from our congressional delegation. We've also tried to do things to make our agency run more efficiently and be more transparent. We streamline all the commission meetings now and have those archived where the general public and anybody else that can't attend the meeting that wants to know what's being said and done can watch that and see us conduct our business. We have refinanced the debt that was drawn primarily through help bonds to save about $40 million and get those paid off in about 8 years sooner. So we also are looking internally, not just outside, and trying to find ways to make the money go further. We are experiencing budget shortfalls. The cost of doing business is more than what it's ever been. Using the same amount of money go into our paving programs that we've had over the last decade, but that money is not going as far. So you're seeing fewer projects. So you're going to have a lot of your colleagues that when they go through our 3-year plan, may be a little disappointed in how many projects we have out just because the money is just simply not going as far as it used to. And I'm hopeful that this session that we can have that type of conversation on how do we modernize our funding model in a way that gives us a dedicated, reliable stream of resources that we can budget for and that best complements our federal program. And I look forward to having those. We are the Department of Transportation. We do more of while we're held accountable for our highways and bridges that we work with the Federal Highway Administration on. We do have airports, aeronautics, water ports, public transit, and rail divisions within the department. The legislature created the Strategic Multimodal Fund here a couple of years ago. I think the first year you put $30 million in it. By us working with the local airports, rail lines, and water ports, we've been able to leverage with that 30 million, a little better than 122 million in federal money. There was 10 million that you put in it last year, and we look forward to leveraging additional federal dollars with that. We've also continued funding from within the Office of Highways, what I'll refer to as the old multimodal fund that continues to invest in aeronautics, rail, water ports, as well as public transit to help leverage other federal money. So we do think that that's been meaningful programs that allows us to get somewhat outside of the normal highway and bridge conversations and work with our local communities to try to help develop those areas in that way. I'm happy to stop there and answer any questions, Mr. Chairman, you may have, or if there's something specific I didn't cover. Other than that, I'm ready to walk through this if you'd like.
Are there any questions from the committee for Mr. White at this point? I think we're ready to get into the.
So basically what our budget request is, as y'all know, we are a large special fund agency. And so primarily what I request every appropriation year that we come back to you is for the authority to spend those federal dollars as well as the supplemental dollars that the legislature has awarded us in the past. We run a reimbursement program. So when you give us the money to build a $200 million 4-lane highway, that money is not paid out all at one time, but over the course of life of the project. So the first page on page 2, it shows you what I've referred to as our supplemental dollars that we've received from the legislature, which is money that's been put into the capacity project fund, money that you've given us as the additional state dollars for the federal match, the Emergency Road and Bridge Fund, which has been another successful program that y'all have funded, the Strategic Multimodal Investments Fund, the Infrastructure Improvements Program that you've got, and then as well as last year, y'all gave us some ARPA funds that other agencies were not going to be able to spend before the deadline of that money, and our paving program was one of the places in government that we could absorb whatever amount y'all gave us. This, you'll see where it says 50 million, we ended up getting an additional 54 million for 104 million total that we were able to push out additional paving projects. So basically what we're asking for that you see here is for the authority to continue to spend out of those monies that have already been appropriated to us so that we can continue to pay the contractors and put the money to use. The next page gives you a comparison of the other revenue that we have that is what I refer to as our programmatic dollars, the federal funds that we have been set aside for us that we'll need the authority from the legislature to draw down and spend, the state revenue from primarily fuel tax or the truck and bus taxes, tag fees, contractors tax, motor carrier fees, as well as the lottery money and some other smaller revenue sources that we have. Again, these are special funds that have been set aside for the department. We just simply need the authority to draw them down and to spend them through that. But this details what those revenue sources are. There's no questions on that. The next 2 pages shows you it's the comparison of our budgets. First, on page 4, you see it by program. On page 5, we've separated it out by object that gives you a little bit of a better glimpse. You'll see that our construction and maintenance programs continue to get the bulk of the money. That's where all of our projects and things exist, along with the other modes of transportation. Again, this is just the authority to expend the special fund that's been set aside for our budget. Our budget, we expect to be nearly 1.5 billion over the course of FY26. But I'm happy to answer any questions you have, but this just kind of lays out the revenue that we receive, where the revenue will go, and our need for the authority to spend it.
Are there any questions from the committee at this point? Brad, I've got a couple of questions. I guess just kind of overall, looking at the salary that was requested, the 202 million, and the difference between that and the LBR recommendation, and the legislative budget recommendation. What are those positions that you're trying to?
These, there'll be a wide array. Primarily, though, they're gonna, what we're seeking to hire will be engineers and maintenance employees. It's certainly not limited to that. I mean, we have a lot of other professional positions and administrative positions within the agency. But where we're trying to recruit back and build back are primarily in those two areas. We spend probably in the neighborhood of about 60, 70 million in consultant fees every year. Back in 1987, after the 4-lane program was done, a lot of the pre-construction work that went into those 4-lane highways were done internally by engineers. Now, due to the loss of staff over time, we're very much dependent on these firms to come in and do a lot of that type of work for us. In an ideal world, we would be able to build back our workforce internally that would kind of break our dependency on outside consultants to do the work, because we believe we could do it internally for cheaper if we had the employees there. The maintenance workers, these are our frontline people that are out when you have snowstorms or bad weather, when the weather and things are at the worst. That's when these folks are away from home and out in the roadways. When I came back as director, they were making somewhere in the neighborhood, I think, of like $8 an hour. And we're completely, as you know, under the personnel board on how much we can raise that pay. And so you had a situation where small towns that don't have that type of limitations that can pay whatever their budget is willing to devote to that we're hiring a lot of our maintenance forces away, counties, other places like that. So what you're seeing with the increase there is basically funding some pins with the hopes that we're going to continue to recruit back in these main areas and be able to continue the building back of our team.
So with is it your plan, because the contractual services has remained pretty steady at 143 million across this. Is it your hope that being able to build back by being able to hire more engineers, that the contractual services will come down?
Well, yeah, the more that we're able to do internally, the less dependent we would have to be on firms to do that work for us. And it's no different from, I mean, DEQ will tell you the same thing. They have, you know, it's just problem competing with the private sector over salaries. But I do think that we're doing a lot better, and I think that over time we'll be able to get back to where we want to be.
So just going, none of this is in any kind of order, Brad, I apologize, but going back to last year, y'all took on, we had 160 million to Lafayette, 90 million to DeSoto for kind of specific projects. And then you had what wound up being over 100 million from ARPA that got swept in. How have you absorbed those? How's the MDOT absorbed those kind of one-time projects? And
well, in relationship to the capacity projects, we would meet with the leadership and would have our list of projects that are about to be ready to, that all the pre-construction work would be completed. These projects were ready to advertise and award a contract to build, but we have to be able to illustrate to Federal Highway Administration that we either have the money up front for those projects or that we can cash flow them from the beginning to completion for them to give us authorization to move ahead. So with one-time money, what we felt like, and we're happy the legislature agreed, the best place to put one-time money was not going to be on recurring expenses, but on the projects that were coming due, that they could just award us a lump sum that we would be able to illustrate to the Federal Highway Administration, we've got the money, we can award the contract and not have fear that it would shut down in the middle of the work. So 100% of the money that has been given to capacity projects go into the identified projects that our 3-year plan has that are
Three-year
under
plan.
construction. The ARPA money was a little bit different in that to be able to spend that out in accordance with the deadlines that were ARPA funds were subject to, what we did was we took the program, the paving programs that you also see in the 3-year plan, and we just shifted back our normal programmatic dollars and applied the ARPA money to those that were about to be awarded in order to ensure that the money would be obligated and out in accordance with the ARPA rules. But again, 100% of that money went on the projects that you see in that 3-year.
That were already identified in the
Correct.
plan.
Yes, sir. They were already identified. In fact, we had already set money aside to be able to build them. We just shifted our money down, put ARPA money up front, and that way we knew that the money would be spent by the deadlines that applied to ARPA.
Okay, because you, for every dollar you get in for paving, you can spend $1 for paving.
We're
You're not gonna run out of paving.
the
projects.
shortfall right now, somewhere around 485 million, 490 million. So that's what made the paving program so appealing for the ARPA funds is we could absorb whatever they gave, whatever y'all gave.
And does your 3-year plan on the paving projects, does it focus on, what I've learned is that they kind of rank the federal government kind of ranks the quality of the highway or the asphalt in 3 different categories, right?
Yes, that's right.
Good,
What
fair,
happened,
poor.
every year, the Federal Highway Administration, along with a team from MDOT, they inspect every inch of the interstate system in the state. And they come up with what the quality of the asphalt is. And from that, you have good, fair, or poor. We have metrics that we're required to hit. You can't have only so much is allowed to be in poor condition. You have targets that how much is supposed to be in good and how much is supposed to be in fair. But also from that comes like, here's the projects that this is where the money needs to go first. So it's data driven. The commissioners have no discretion when it comes to the paving. It's all data driven. The rest of the system that are non-interstate highways, they're in this very same way inspected and judged and categorized on a every other year basis. And it's from that information that the other 3 paving programs are outlined out in order. And that's also how we calculate what the shortfall is. We know how much money is going into paving. We know what the standard of the highway system is. We know what our performance targets by the federal government are, and we know what they're willing to tolerate. And so we're able then to do some math and be able to figure out how much money you need to award the amount of projects necessary to get our performance targets up. And so the whole goal would be that we would not fall far enough behind in that the federal government, that our federal funds would come in jeopardy. And so far, we've been able to keep our metrics good, but the more asphalt costs or the more goods costs, equipment costs, the more of a problem that's going to be. You are seeing a decline in the number of projects that we're doing, and had it not been for funds like ARPA and other things, it would have been impacted even worse.
Where do we sit right now? Where does Mississippi sit right now relative to those federal performance targets on the paving?
I think we're in good shape. I'd have to go and look to tell you the exact deal. Right now, with what we have, I think we do a very good job of getting the bulk of our money directly into projects. And we have a very good working relationship with the Federal Highway Administration. But that shortfall still exists. And the thing that you run into is when our budget stays the same and costs continue to grow over time, even with the infusion of lottery funds and other things that have been extremely helpful, 100% of the lottery money goes to paving 2-lane highways all over the state. And I think we've been able to rehabilitate a little better than 3,000 lane miles since we've been receiving lottery money. But even in 2017-18, when the lottery was created, I mean, what it costs for us to do business today versus even then is so much more that 80 million just doesn't go as far as it did just 5-6 years ago when we started getting it.
So just some of the stuff so the IIJA, the federal highway program. Is that set to end soon or be replaced
Yeah,
soon?
well, the portion of the IIJA that was relevant to us was the reauthorization of the Federal Highway Administration. So that was just one component of the IIJA. And Congress deals with that differently every authorization. Sometimes it could be a standalone bill, sometimes it's incorporated into a larger bill, like it was last time. It's on 5-year intervals. So this current Congress will begin work, I'm sure, over the next year or so in preparing for the next reauthorization. But I think we're in year 4.
Yeah.
We're in year 4 of the 5-year authorization.
Before the next authorization.
Congress will go again.
Any sense on what that's going to look like? for
Well,
Mississippi?
I mean, our delegations, we're very fortunate to have a delegation that's in pretty good seating in that. Senator Wicker is one of the ranking Republicans on the Transportation Committee in the Senate. Congressman Ezell is on the Transportation Committee in the House, and they're the ones that will authorize the legislation that will craft it. Senator Hyde Smith chairs the subcommittee for appropriations that deals with transportation. So that's a long way around the barn saying that I'm real hopeful that we'll see an increase in federal funds in the next authorization. This last authorization, they increased it by $1 billion. And without that, we would not been able to start back the capacity program that we have now. So I'm hopeful that you'll see an increase in that, but that'll all be part of the discussion when they begin crafting that legislation.
So right now, you're fully, MDOT's fully compliant with its federal highway requirements right now. You're good. Does anybody have does any member of the committee have any other questions for Mr. White? Good, Mr. Senator Younger.
What's the lowest paid? What do they make?
Well, around $12 an hour. I think our starting pay is like, what would you say this is? Just with Tech One, like 21. I can get that for you. When we started, it was like 18,000 a year when I first came back. And I think that over the life of SEC squared, we've been able to adjust that on an annual basis to where we've gotten it up into somewhere in the low 20s, 22, 21, 22, 23, something like that. Now, right. When we hire in a maintenance tech one, over the course of that year, we invest in them to try to help them get their commercial driver's license and all of that. So the goal is for them not to stay in that position, but the course of 1 year. And as soon as they receive their CDLs and all, they're promoted into a Tech 2 position, which can get their pay upwards of nearly 30,000, I think, is where that is. So the pay is, I mean, we've seen a positive difference in that. I mean, that's why I say SEC squared has worked wonders for us. And the personnel board's been absolutely great to work with in trying to target these problem areas to where we can have the people back. I mean, this is the first time in anybody's memory that we've had to send snowplows from North Mississippi to the Gulf Coast in this last winter event that we had. But these are the ones that are out front. I mean, these are the employees. I don't know if you've heard Governor Barber talk before, but after Katrina, these were the ones that were in front of the Highway Patrol and the National Guard and everybody else when they were having bulldozers and chainsaws and literally cutting their way down 49 to get the first responders to the coast and all that. It was MDOT maintenance forces that were doing that.
My folks back home were bragging. I told them to send it.
Yeah. Well, you certainly give us the resources to do it. We couldn't do it without you, for sure.
Thank you for all you.
The tech ones, I think, are making 28,000. Majority of them are making 28. There's one person, 21.
Hard to keep good health with all the industry we have. Hear my other businesses complaining about everybody leaving.
That's actually higher than what I thought it was.
That's good.
I don't have anything further. If any members of the committee don't have any questions, Appreciate you, Mr. White. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
Very much, Senator.